Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of Pit Pass Network interviews. Today, we're joined by JJ Yeley, driver of the number 15 and number 51 Ford for Rick Ware Racing in the NASCAR Cup Series. So thanks so much, JJ, for joining us.
No, of course. Thank you for having me. I'm just glad that Rick Ware Racing no longer has additional Cup cars, or you'd have to add some numbers to my repertoire.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so you're just coming off a strong seventh place finish at Atlanta. So I guess walk me through your race.
Uh, well, it was, it fired off as a really good weekend. Obviously, when we go to Atlanta now, it has this odd combination of super speedway racing, super speedway package, but we're still obviously racing a mile-and-a-half racetrack. So we no longer practice at Atlanta. We only qualify. And, thankfully this time around, I wasn't one of the first cars on the racetrack. I know in the spring it was very dirty. I believe BJ McLeod was the first car on the racetrack and spun out coming to the green. So it made me a little bit apprehensive. So we didn't qualify well in the spring, but the guys brought a very fast race car to the track and qualified 24th. It was awesome for obviously we had Patriot Mobile back with a very beautiful red, blue, and white paint scheme. We had the movie Sound of Freedom on the hood. So, just stayed out of trouble, just, methodical in the lane choices, where we wanted to be. Again, I think we averaged about a 19th place position on the racetrack through the entire day. And, through a couple of the wrecks near the end, I caught a piece of debris, got a flat left front tire after avoiding, one of the big wrecks. Had to pit. That put us into a little bit of a funny pit strategy, which ultimately, paid huge dividends for us because not only did it put us into a good fuel window where we could stay out there when there was the threat of rain, but, if it would not have rained, we still would have had enough fuel to stay within our pit window and, wouldn't have hurt us if we had to race the full length of the race to get to the checkered. So, battled inside, or, basically we're battling for a top 5 finish there. And, I kind of got pinched getting into 3. It allowed Kyle Busch to get to my outside. So, it was fun, hard racing, with the runs that you got and just the width of the racetrack. You had to be very precise with your moves on the racetrack, and the holes open and close very quickly. So relied on my spotter, Steve Barkdahl, quite a bit, as well as just the newer technology in these Cup cars. We have electronic rear view cameras that allow you to kind of slide into positions that spotters typically may not have the best view for.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned about your Patriot Mobile machine, and I thought the paint job looked awesome under the lights, especially with the chrome numbers on them. So I guess what do you think of NASCAR's new addition they started last year to allowing chrome numbers on cars?
It's interesting, obviously, when NASCAR started talking about just change, just moving the number in general, it seemed to create all sorts of animosity amongst the newer NASCAR fans, and obviously our seasoned fans that are used and accustomed to seeing the stock position. And then just the addition of allowing fresher, brighter colors going with the chrome numbers. Just things that helped update NASCAR into modern era. So you see a lot of different car designs that maybe in the day NASCAR wouldn't have approved. Typically every sponsor, every paint scheme has to be submitted to NASCAR for approval before we get to a race weekend. So I've seen some, like I said, I've seen some really beautiful race cars and some stuff that typically back in the day would not have gotten approved.
For sure. And then making paint schemes, are you involved in any of that?
No, that is definitely not my department. I am the race car driver. I leave that up to our design team. Bart Kelly does a lot of the specific designs for RWR. Um, the marketing agency AMG Sport, they also have someone in house that comes up with some fantastic designs. So it's cool that just a lot of different designers have the options and technology to get the templates to where they can sit there and design cars. I mean, I've gone as far as having different people that I've seen do iRacing designs come out and do some Xfinity cars for me in years past. So I try to keep it fresh, and when you see someone who has an eye for a great design and has that talent, even though they may not be in the industry, it is sometimes cool to tap into their ability and give them a little bit of spotlight in NASCAR.
Yeah, for sure. And that's very cool. Um, and you mentioned your sponsor was Patriot Mobile. So I guess explain to the fans at home that don't know Patriot Mobile what that's about.
So Patriot Mobile is a Christian conservative cell phone service. They are the only in the country. They are national. They have national service, which a lot of people wouldn't realize. They're based out of Texas. And it's for conservatives that have the that have the same values of life, and want their money to go towards companies that support those values. And some of the larger carriers obviously don't do that. So it's a cool way to get behind your American companies. They're currently a private company. They have service across the country. You just go to patriotmobile.com. You can check out their packages. Obviously they're very similar to any other typical cell phone company. So again, your dollars are going towards American company, and it's not really affecting your cell phone service.
For sure. And then you raced that car obviously at Atlanta, and a lot of people say Atlanta, like the way the track's designed now, is similar to Daytona and Talladega. But what are your opinions on that?
Well, I mean, they are and they're not. Now, obviously, it's still a 1.5 mile racetrack. We can get three wide. It's very difficult to do so. You can get a huge run. Typically, the outside lane, at least this past race seemed to carry the most amount of speed. So you almost had to stay in the middle of the top lane to not lose that momentum down the straightaway and lose all the positions. Sometimes more positions than if you stayed on the outside. So yes, we have the speedway, the super speedway aspect of the draft, but again, because the racetrack being a little bit narrower, tighter corners, it definitely still races different than our typical super speedways.
For sure. And how would you assess your season thus far? It's like halfway through about with Wickra Racing.
I would say it's been a massive improvement. Obviously I haven't been full time I've been bouncing back and forth between the 15 and the 51, which obviously puts me with different crew chiefs. So I've spent a little bit of time with Jerry Kelly, who is new to the organization this year. He came from Penske Motorsports, Penske Racing in the off season. And then Billy Plurd, who's been with the organization for a handful of years as a crew chief, and worked back with him a long, long time ago, even when I was at Gibbs. So it's to have I've had success and had really good runs with both crew chiefs. I like to compliment our program, and the relationship with RFK as an alliance has really been, to me, the biggest difference between the improvement from last year to this year. Last year they had an alliance with Stewart-Haas Racing, and it just wasn't beneficial to us as nearly as much as the RFK side of things. So now RWR is on the RFK campus there in Concord. We have access to a lot of their technology. The communication between us and them only gets stronger as the year goes on. Obviously, the better we do and more competitive we can be, I feel like, we'll give them the confidence to, at some point, you know, use us is more of a tool of being a third or fourth car. And, through some of those, through those testing, or, there may be some R&D issues, but some things that they would like to try that, obviously their performance this year has been really good between the 6 and the 17. And I would hope that both of them are capable of putting themselves into the chase. But again, there could be some times where there's setups, there's some things that they would like to try, but they don't have the liberty of doing that. We might be able to be an asset in some of those situations.
For sure. Yeah, definitely the RFK Alliance, I feel like benefits a lot. I guess how'd that come about?
Well, obviously that's up to our president Robbie Benton and Rick Ware to have created that opportunity. Again, last year, Rick felt like the Stewart Haas Alliance was going to be beneficial, and it just wasn't. I think internally, their organization itself, they battle themselves as far as the way they either run their program, or some of the way that they have their teams don't typically share information or don't run the same setup. So there's a point where you can only do things separately as a team and grow or get to a certain point. So I felt like we were more of a drag or a nuisance to them, and the information we got really just didn't help us from a speed sense compared to what we've seen this year.
For sure. And so your real name is Christopher. I saw on your Wikipedia page, and I saw on your Wikipedia page that your name is JJ after your father and close family friend Jimmy and Jack. So I guess explain the significance of those two in your life.
Yeah. So, when I was born, which is funny to me, 1976, that, my parents didn't have a name, chosen for me. They had plenty of time to do so. But when the time came, I was a C-section, and my parents hadn't come to a conclusion on a name. I think my dad wanted me to be like an Anthony Joseph after an AJ Foyt. My mom had something else completely picked out. So in the process of coming up with a solution, my dad, his name is Jack. What would be his best friend, almost like my uncle, would be Jimmy. They just took those two initials, and I went with JJ from pretty much my first breath on this earth. And it wasn't until after that they came to a resolution and came up with Christopher as my legal name. But I've been JJ since I've been born. I've been that to everyone in the racing world, from quarter midgets, grade school. My friends call me that. So, from the official portion of being Chris, I think my grandmother was the only one who ever really called me Christopher. But yeah, I've been a JJ. But again, it's just a stage name. It's not good for anything. I can't cash a check with that name on. I can't get on an airplane with that name. So it's just kind of a funny situation and how it worked out. But that's how it's been from the very beginning, and it'll probably be like that until I head out of this place.
For sure, yeah. Definitely an interesting dynamic there, but a cool one too. Um, and I guess now walk me through your background in racing, I guess how you got into it.
Well, my dad, Cactus Jack, he was a 7-time Arizona midget champion. He raced, across the country in the 80s. He worked for a Machinist Union IndyCar team for a while. So, from I think I went to my very first race when I was a couple weeks old. Started racing quarter midgets at the age of 9, which typically is pretty late compared to what kids start nowadays. But fast track through quarter midgets, go-karts, started racing professionally at the age of 14, racing midgets. Was emancipated so I could start racing in California when I was 16. So, again, my entire life has been based off of, going racing and being a race car driver. Graduated high school in 3 years for the same reason. I missed a lot of school traveling to California to race. I say it was an inconvenience going to school, but obviously that's something we all have to do. So I took summer courses, graduated early, and just again, my life has been dedicated to racing, being a race car driver. After many years of doing it, I still love being behind the wheel of a race car. I love every aspect of it. Obviously the traveling portion of it can get a little hard at times, but I haven't gotten to the point yet of where I don't look forward to doing it. And, I really don't even look towards what's going to come after racing again, because I'm just not to that point yet.
For sure. And in your younger days, do you remember your very first car number?
Yeah, my very first car number was number two. And then actually, when I started racing midgets, my dad was still racing midgets as well. So that's where I came up with the 2J number, which works good for JJ. It's got two J's. So 2J has always been kind of one of my numbers. It was my first number. I bounced around from that and the number five to those were the numbers that I could choose before, they would just assign you numbers based off of where you finished in points. If you finished inside the top 10 in points when I was racing sprint cars and midgets. So it's always been two or five, but typically I've always stuck with 2J just because it meant something with the 2Js.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I actually dug deep, and a fun fact I found related to car numbers is you have driven in 27 different car numbers in the Cup Series and 28 different car numbers in the Xfinity Series. So, did you know that you've raced in that many numbers?
Uh, I didn't realize it had gotten to that high a number, but again, after 20 years in the sport and bouncing around from a lot of small teams, and there's been times where I've jumped in other people's race cars just to either help them out from a field to make a race, um, to just to do something like that. So it's amazing that I've reached that high end number for kind of a dubious owner, I guess, of running that many different car numbers. So um, a new fact for me. So thanks for that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was just curious because I knew you drove in a lot of different numbers over the years. So and I guess you competed in the 1998 Indianapolis 500 as a young 21-year-old and finished a strong top 10 finish with the ninth. So I guess explain to me the feelings of that day because you were really young and it was only your second ever uh, IndyCar race, and you got to finish in the top 10 in one of the most historic races of all time.
Yeah, the opportunity for me, especially then to get to run an Indy car at all, obviously a lot of that had to do with Tony George and the IRL at the time. His vision was to bring back the old days of where you had drivers who raced midgets and sprint cars on Saturday, Friday nights and Saturday nights, and then would, be able to run Indy. So, guys like myself, Donnie Beechler, Steve Kinzer, the late Jason Leffler, um, there's a pretty massive list of guys. Obviously, Tony Stewart fits into that category as well. That that got that chance that may not have before. So I ran Phoenix at International Raceway for my very first race in IndyCar, which was actually only I think my fourth time ever being on asphalt. So huge learning curve. Obviously nothing remotely close to racing, a pavement sprint car. So to go to Indy as a rookie, it was the traditional month of May. I got a lot of laps, passed my rookie orientation. Immediately had some close calls in practice with some other wrecks that were around me. We qualified 13th, which made me the highest starting rookie for the 1998 500. And then, I was actually caught up in a first turn, first corner altercation with Eddie Cheever, where he came down, pinched me down to the edge of the rumble strip, so we made contact. he spun, continued on. I spun to stop, installed the engine, and they were obviously able to restart me, put tires on it. Stayed out of trouble, had a really good race, and finished ninth. Unfortunately, I lost a lap sitting on the racetrack waiting to get basically push started, or I would have finished fifth, which obviously have a top five at the Indianapolis 500 would have been amazing. But to go there again with virtually no pavement experience or asphalt experience, and finish inside the top 10 at a race like that, is obviously one of those portions of my career that I'm thankful for. It'll always stand out. Obviously I still have my Indy 500 ring and a couple of the other awards I got from that year. Never got another opportunity to go back. Again, I was fortunate. I was able to do it without having to bring sponsorship. It was, the era of they would hire drivers based off of if they felt like you had the ability to get the job done. So I did it. I don't know that I would ever, I don't know that I would consider going back now. The cars are so much different. The technology is way beyond what it was for when I ran. And, I think it's just tough to jump into that type of car now and really be competitive against guys who do it on a weekly basis. So it'll be interesting to see, like how Kyle Larson does next year when he attempts to do his first Indianapolis 500.
For sure. And then also, historically, you've had a knack in dirt racing. And as you mentioned about Tony Stewart earlier, you two are the only two drivers in USAC history to achieve the Triple Crown in a single season, where you win the National Sprint, Silver Crown, and National Midget Series titles all in one season. And also you have the USAC record for the most wins in one season with 24. So I guess what is it about dirt racing that makes it unique compared to asphalt racing?
Well, obviously that particular season, I went on both asphalt and dirt. Obviously I had my majority of my wins came from the sprint car series, which was, again, majority of the dirt, which was, more gratifying because I took care of the sprint car program for Tony Stewart was actually my owner. The dirt side of things, that's where I started my racing career. I still enjoy it to this day. It's to me a little bit more difficult just because the track conditions change so drastically compared to that of an asphalt track. So typically the tracks are wet and have a lot of grip to start the night, and then as the racetrack dries out and you run more laps on it, you have to make a lot more adjustments to the race car. So being I worked basically as a crew chief driver on the sprint car again. I got to kind of design the car that I ran. I made the choices essentially on what I wanted to change. So, to be able to control my own destiny on that side of it, again, made a lot of fun. Of course, I drove for Bob East, who was, the guru of midget racing. Learned a lot from him. Obviously, we won a lot of pavement, midget, and dirt midget races with him as my crew chief over there. So it was an amazing year. I actually won a championship and finished second in the other two divisions in 2002. So, it was just a matter of cleaning up some of the small mistakes, knowing that, consistency typically wins championships, but, we had dominant race cars and set a record for the most wins in a single season. Honestly, I can look back and I can be pissed because, the very last race at Salem Speedway, was leading the race, had a, straightaway lead, and went through the bumps with, I think it was like 4 or 5 laps to go, and actually spun the car, and had to go to the back, and I still finished like third or fourth, but it could have been 25 wins. But it wasn't. So.
For sure. And over the time you've raced on dirt, what would you say has been your favorite track you've raced on?
Wow. That's hard. I've been to a lot of different racetracks, and some of them are better for different reasons. Obviously going to a place like Knoxville, which has so much history, but kept up with the time. So, the facility is beautiful. Eldora, But you can go to California to a place like Ventura Raceway, which was one of my favorite racetracks. Um, which is a almost a fifth mile that we would race, midgets and sprint cars on. So, I became, say famous, but my home track in Manzanita Speedway, which unfortunately, like a lot of dirt tracks, we're just in a bad location that after time, the property was worth too much, and the racetracks get knocked down and become, either housing additions or buildings or, whatever it may be. So, um, there's a lot of really cool racetracks I've been able to race, and there's some places that I've never been that, at some point might look forward to getting the opportunity to go race at.
Yeah, for sure. That's very cool. And NASCAR developed a couple years seasons ago, the Bristol Dirt Race. So how excited were you when you heard that news?
It was interesting, obviously, 2 years ago with the old Cup cars, or 3 years ago, whatever it was, it was a tough race. The time of day, the way the sun was coming down, it made it way way more difficult than it really needed to be. And then the fact that they kept the dirt race when we converted to the new gen car was shocking to take a car A that's as expensive as they are, and just the design of them to take them to a dirt track. But had a really good run going last year. Was inside the top 10, got caught up in someone's wreck and had a part failure. This year, had a really good heat race. Ended up third in points. Had an okay race. We just missed a little bit on the setup, and it was fun. I mean, even though it's dirt, they're still not dirt race cars. You don't get to drive them like a dirt race car. I think that was proven when they brought in some of the best dirt late model guys in recent years, and still kind of struggled. So, even though it was dirt, you still had to drive it a little bit more like asphalt, and um, I don't know that it's going to maintain on the schedule for next year, but it was a fun thing to have. Obviously, completely different for something that NASCAR typically sees.
Yeah, for sure. And over the years, you've raced in NASCAR, IndyCar, and dirt cars. And so I would say the three biggest races for those three forms of racing is the Daytona 500, Indianapolis 500, and the Chili Bowl. So if you had to choose one, which would you prefer to win?
Well, that's a tough one. I've been trying for a really long time to win the Tulsa Chili Bowl. I've been going to that race since I was a kid. I think I've participated in it as a driver more than 25 times, I think. So that would be a cool one to win. But obviously, to win the Daytona 500 is a staple event. A lot of guys that have made it to the Hall of Fame have tried to win the race and haven't. And it's taken guys who may have not won races and won the Daytona 500 and just changed their career. And obviously for me, I've been doing it a long time. It would just be um, phenomenal to have, the at least the opportunity to be, fighting for the win there in the last couple laps when it really comes down to a little bit of luck and some help and having a fast race car. So, I guess if I had to pick any of the ones, it would, it'd be the Daytona 500.
Yeah, for sure. And the SRX series started last week, and they've done some dirt racing in the past. Would you like to participate in it one day?
I would be interested. Obviously, it's they have more full-time Cup guys racing in the SRX series this year than I think they had in the previous seasons. It's pretty cool that obviously with Tony and what he's doing, bringing back the Thursday night Thunder portion of what we all remember as open wheel racers. Um, and keeping kind of to old tradition is pretty cool. So it would be fun to jump in one of those cars. Obviously I haven't seen them up close, don't know what they drive like, but They seem to be a great combination of the IROC series and then going to some nostalgic short tracks that some fans may have never heard of, but definitely have a lot of history behind them.
Yeah, for sure. So early on in your Cup career, like during your rookie year, you replaced a big name, Bobby Labonte, who is a Cup champion in the sport in the number 18 Interstate Batteries Chevy, in 2006. So what did it mean to take over a ride like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously it was a dream come true. I mean, I had worked, very very hard to get the opportunity to go to NASCAR. Obviously it wasn't my original, I won't say my original ambition, but I got the opportunity of IndyCar racing first. I drove for a small team. They eventually didn't have the sponsorship to continue on and went back to racing midgets and sprint cars. Rebuilt my career, won races, championships, and made myself um, sought after enough that I at least had a chance to do something different. Did a test for Ford in a Bush car, and then obviously got the call to go to Joe Gibbs Racing and test for them. Ultimately got a contract, ran a couple seasons in the what was the Bush Series. Finished fifth in points, had a lot of top tens, some top fives, and then obviously with Bobby deciding that he was going to give it a go, I think he left to go to Petty. Between me and Denny, we had some tests for the 11 car, and then just the way it worked out, they had two positions to fill, so they put Denny in the FedEx car. I went to the 18 car, and yeah, so I had some really good runs my rookie season. Again, learning the Cup cars, I overdrove them a lot. I mean, looking back, I made a lot of mistakes that obviously would like to take back and do differently, but obviously we don't get that opportunity. So my second season, I don't feel like I had quite as much speed. We had a lot more consistency. Went all the way down to Homestead. I think I was 19th in points going into Homestead, and we had a tire cut down and then ran out of fuel on a green white checkered that dropped us to 21st in points. So it was what it was. Again, we had fast race cars. I don't think we had dominant race cars like JGR has produced here in more recent years. But again, it was pretty cool to take over a car that was so famous from obviously Dale Jarrett and then Bobby Labonte.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. And I would say a special moment in your career was in 2011 when you helped Whitney Motorsports make the Daytona 500 because by racing your way in the Gatorade Duels, because it was impactful because they missed the previous season. So I guess what kind of gratification does it give you to help small teams achieve their goals like that?
Well, I mean, that was kind of the beginning of what I would say my expertise has been. Obviously I've been in the sport a long time. I kind of got the reputation for being able to be a good qualifier, having good speed, maximizing the equipment that I was driving without you know pairing up equipment. So that made me a huge asset for small teams that needed to qualify in on speed, make the race, and do the best that they could. So like you said, it was tough, especially that year making the 500 for Whitney Motorsports. That was the year when we did the tandem drafting with the pushing. Marcus Ambrose pushed me for a great portion of the race. It was really what got me to the opportunity near the end to get the car locked in. Unfortunately, I think we had the engine expire about 30 laps in the Daytona 500, so it was short lived. But because of it, I've started with some other small Xfinity teams, JGL, and helped them grow to be bigger. And ultimately that was kind of my role when I started at RWR, 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And I gathered up another special moment. I would say in 2017 when you drove for TriStar Motorsports in Xfinity Series. Team owner Mark Smith died in July, and then 1 week later, you scored a season best sixth place finish, which is a very good finish for a small team at Iowa. So, what were the emotions like scoring that finish for in honor of Smith?
Uh, yeah. I mean, obviously, I can remember that race. We went. We were unsponsored. Iowa was unfortunately we don't go there anymore, but it's a very fun racetrack, very rough, has a lot of character. Was just basically ripping the top and passed a bunch of cars at the end to get myself in a position. I thought at one point we were going to finish better than that, but six is where we came up with. I mean, my in my time at JGL and it TriStar being again fairly small teams. Finished 13th in points 2 years in a row. The first car to miss going into the chase for both years. So, to be able to do that with again the small team, tiny budgets, small amount of people. I mean, it was, it helps you and gives you that determination to continue on or continue trying, knowing that you can beat teams that either have more resources, better cars, what have you. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and again, obviously for the Smith family to go out there and have a strong run right after he had passed, it helps a little bit. Ultimately the team shut down at the end of the season, and Brian moved on and did some other things. So it was a good weekend, and then yeah, I had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. And then at Bristol Motor Speedway during driver intros, you've gone upstage with your daughter many times in Elvis Presley themed clothes, and having fun with it. So I guess where'd that idea come from?
Yeah, when Faith was small, she was not afraid of the crowd. She enjoyed it. So, that's what the driver intros are supposed to be about. Bristol's having fun. And obviously NASCAR is a very family oriented sport. So, we did some really cool different themes, for multiple years, at least while I was still in the Cup Series. I think between the Guns N' Roses, where we came out as the band, or when we came out to Elvis, or I did Little Red Riding Hood too. That was, those were my probably three favorite of the half dozen that we did. It was cool. It's always something I'll be able to share with obviously my daughter Faith, and I still get fans every now and again like, oh, I can remember that was so cool. So just creating memories not only for my family but for our NASCAR family.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. And what does it mean to have your daughter watching you in your racing journey?
It means a lot. I've been in the sport a very long time, and in the very beginning, my wife Kristen and my daughter Faith came to all the races every weekend. I was doing double duty between both Xfinity or the Busch Series and the Cup Series, and then it got to a point where NASCAR made changes to where minors aren't allowed on pit road during the race. So there was a time there where my family didn't travel to the racetrack. So my daughter's now 18. She's no longer a minor. She can come to the races. She can be on pit road and she can enjoy the race weekend. So that's been nice. The little bit that they've been able to do that since she's been of age. She's getting ready to head off to college. So that's going to be limited again. But, to be able to share that with my family is, what makes it easier to continue on after doing it for so long. Because again, the travel's tough. You spend a lot of time either alone or away from your family, and it becomes a little bit of a grind.
Yeah, for sure. And that's very cool. She's going to college. What is she majoring in?
She is going to major in sports marketing and minor in event planning. So she's getting ready to go off and do that here in the fall. So obviously very proud of her and her accomplishments and what she's looking to do in her life moving on.
That's very cool. In what college?
She's going to be going to High Point University.
That's very awesome. I guess that's in North Carolina, so I guess that'd be still pretty close, I think, to where you're at right now.
It is. Thankfully, she's it's about an hour, 15 hour and 20 minutes away. So anytime we get a little bit of missing our kid, we'll be able to get there a little more quickly than if she was out of state.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess in 2004 is when you entered the NASCAR scenes. And I guess entering as a new driver, which driver would you say that's driven in NASCAR at that time, like for a while, would you say gave you the most guidance and tips early on?
Uh, I mean, that's pretty tough. I tried to lean a lot on the teammates that we had, between Tony Stewart and Bobby Labonte. Bobby's driving style was completely different. He was a right foot breaker. I'm a left foot breaker. So there was a lot of things that didn't carry over. So things that he did, from characteristically didn't match up well. But anytime I could take advice from him, obviously Tony, Tony was a little bit more concerned about Tony sometimes, but if there was something I was really struggling with, I would go and bug him with trying to figure out. And through pretty much my entire career, I've always stayed to myself and figured it out on my own. I guess that's the downfall of being hard headed, and I think because of that, it made my learning curve longer than it really should have been or needed to be. And again, I think one of those things that hurt me once I went from the Xfinity car into the Cup car. So after a couple years, the things that I was doing wrong, I learned how to do better, and I was a little bit late, but I finally got there.
Yeah, for sure. And then something interesting, during the 2020 season, you've raced for three different teams, Rick Ware, Spire, and Tommy Baldwin. And they're in like in different orders too. So maybe one week it'd be Rick Ware and then Spire and then back to Rick Ware. And like it was just like it wasn't like Rick Ware like consecutively like for and then Spire and then Tommy. It was like switching up and then going back. So I guess what was it like going from one team to another throughout that season?
Yeah, we were the shops were right next to each other here in Mooresville, and at the time there was they were working with each other a little bit in order to make it work. So there were weeks where I again drove the 51 for RWR. There were some weeks where I drove the 77, which again was the Spire car at the time, and then a handful of races. I think maybe only two or three where I drove the 7 for Tommy. So obviously I drove for Tommy for a few years. He had come back and had a couple races that he was doing and crew chiefing himself. So again, with my years of experience and just kind of filled in wherever and whenever I was needed.
Yeah, for sure. And then over the years, obviously you've driven in Cup, Xfinity, and Truck. So I guess explain to the fans at home that don't know, like how do all three of the cars drive differently?
Well, with the trucks, they have a lot more drag. They have a lot more downforce, side force. So, and they have less horsepower. So they typically drive the easiest of the three cars. Once you get into the Xfinity car, you're looking at 650, 660 horsepower through wheels. Again, good downforce. The Xfinity car and the old Cup cars used to drive pretty similar, even though there was a difference in horsepower. And then now with the Cup cars, especially the new Cup car, there's no comparison. The feel of the car, the way they drive, from the brakes to the steering feel. We shift at almost every racetrack we go to while we're under green. It's completely different. So it's definitely a bigger jump to go now from the Xfinity series to the Cup cars. Brian Newman, who has obviously had a phenomenal NASCAR career, has come back and run some races for Rickwell Racing. I know this past weekend he ran the 15 car in New Hampshire, and from what I could gather, he didn't like shifting, and it's the extreme short tracks like New Hampshire, Martinsville, where you're shifting constantly during a lap. Just again, it's something completely different. It's different from what he's used to from his years of being in NASCAR. So, it takes a little bit of time to get acclimated to it, but yeah, that's about the differences between the three.
Yeah, for sure. The shifting definitely adds a interesting dynamic to the Cup car, and the next gen car came out last year. And so, besides the shifting, what would you say is the biggest difference between the next gen and the Gen 6?
Man, there's so much. The pedals in the car mount differently. They hinge from the bottom. The leverage it takes to slow the cars down or less because we have bigger rotors and bigger calipers. The way the steering and the rack is in the car, the feel of the car gives you is completely different. We have no side force really with these cars now. It's only down force. So they're night and day different between what we used to have and what you have now, and finding that edge of fast and spin or fast and crash is so razor thin. And I think it was easy to see. I think Kyle Busch had problems qualifying, practice, and in the race in New Hampshire. And I mean, he's one of the best that'll ever be in our sport. So again, it's tough to find that edge of maximizing speed and put yourself into a bad position.
Yeah, for sure. And then, uh, what racetrack over the years been your would you say has been your favorite to race on?
I would say Chicagoland was one of my favorites. Obviously, we don't go there anymore. I enjoy going to Phoenix, home track. That the racetrack there has gone through some configuration changes from when I started to what we race now. When I was running the Bush Series, we ran Nazareth, which was a lot of fun to race. Obviously, it's another racetrack that was gone. So, between Chicago and Phoenix were probably my favorite racetracks.
That's very cool. And then you didn't mention any road courses, but did you have any road course racing background coming into NASCAR? And then if not, were there any drivers who helped you in the beginning stages of road course racing?
Yeah, I did none. I would say very little, but I did zero, road course racing before I came to NASCAR. Uh, you know, Joe Gibbs Racing shipped me and Denny off. We spent, some time at a place like Bob Bondurant, just getting acclimated to, some of the different nuances that it took. Um, you trying to lean on guys that were specialists. But I think even nowadays, uh, the before this car, we'll say, when you had the Ron Fellows, some of the guys who really were just phenomenal road course racers that could come and jump into a Busch car or a Cup car and win away. Just because you needed the time of the car, you needed that feel. And I think it's been like that for years and years. Now, we had, you go to Chicago and you bring someone from the supercars that, their car is very similar to the new Cup car, and just, I mean, he showed not only his talent, but, kind of that NASCAR Cup guys and have been doing it can be beat at their own game. So I think that's going to elevate a lot of drivers to spend maybe a little bit more time focusing on road courses where we typically don't do that very much.
Yeah, for sure. And over the years, like past few years, they added a lot more road course racing into the schedule. So Um, what do you think of all the new road courses coming in?
Well, with the new gen car, I mean, obviously it's more like a road course car than it is an oval track car. So I mean, they do have more grip. The shifting, all the things fit more of a road course type of car. To go to the Watkins Glens, the Sonomas, our typical racetracks. And then the addition of like the Roval. Obviously we had Chicago Street Course. I'm sure that they'll continue to do more street racing. I would assume that they'll go back to Chicago and give that another shot, but I think it'll be a scenario where they may start traveling and doing road course city street races, continuing in the future as long as we can keep the fans engaged into doing that. So just another new aspect of the sport, and keeping fans excited about the differences, and finding new fans that want to come out and watch.
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess like pre-race, what would you do you have any like routine or is it just normal stuff?
For me now, it's fairly normal. Obviously hydration is a big part. These cars are very hot. The race weekend is very taxing on the body, so hydration is big. Getting a light meal in, before the race gets going is always critical. Our schedules have changed so much over the years that the time that we spend actually at the racetrack on race day is less now than what it used to be. So you have to have everything set because it does move very quickly, from when we can get into the haulers to speaking with sponsors, and then going to the drivers meeting and then pre-race. So definitely have to make sure you have everything kind of set up and ready to go, or you don't want to miss a meal, or put yourself in a situation where you're not 100% ready to go for when they drop the green flag.
Yeah, for sure. And then how do you control your nerves before a race as well?
Well, I mean, it's second nature for me. I've been doing it so long, so I mean, the nerves aren't really much of an issue. It's just another day at the office for me.
And then also, do you utilize iRacing now to prep for races?
I don't. I mean, I do have an iRacing rig. I purchased it and got it for whenever we were during COVID. I don't use it very often. Obviously that my home rig is nowhere as sophisticated as that of the Ford rig that they use for sim, and working on setups and tire models, and getting acclimated to some new tracks. So I haven't been um, involved in that side of it very much. I know some of the teams will, spend a lot of time working on that. Some other teams and drivers don't, just because they don't feel like they're, as big a gain as there was, maybe last year when we were all new to these cars and the setups, and getting acclimated. So, I think it goes across the board on different things. Obviously, if I was going to go to a road course, or someplace where I hadn't had as much time, I would want to jump on the sim and at least get acclimated and see if there were some areas where I could find some speed, because our practice sessions are typically pretty short anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And then as far as car handling, uh, do you prefer a race if you can't have your car neutral, do you prefer it loose or tight?
For the new gen cars, typically I can find more speed if the car is more on the tight side versus the loose side. Again, they're not very forgiving. So once you cross that threshold of grip, um, you know, spinning or worse can come into play. So again, if I can, between the two balances, I can typically find more speed out of a car that is a little bit more on the snug side.
Yeah, for sure. And then as far as the turn goes, are you more of a hard on entry or slower on entry type of guy in the turns, or does it vary?
Unfortunately for me, a majority of my career, I've been too hard on entry. And again, that was something I struggled with as a rookie, especially going to the Cup car because the speeds were faster. So, you know, having a little bit of patience, and knowing that you can find more grip by not overdriving entry, it just comes from years of experience and trying to be smart about it. But typically, I will overdrive the car more often than I will underdrive it.
Yeah, for sure. And then, did you growing up have a favorite NASCAR driver growing up?
I mean, obviously, I was a Dale Senior fan. You know, he was the intimidator. He was the guy who moved guys out of the road. Just your classic um, hero. So, of all the guys who, as a kid watching, that would definitely be my number one guy.
Yeah, for sure. And then there's an interesting question. As a kid, have you ever thought of doing something else in racing in your future, or was your mindset all racing?
No, my mindset has always been racing. When I was a kid, I was playing little league baseball, but I was also racing quarter midgets go karts, and then I started racing midgets. And it came to a point where, my dad gave me the options. You can either be a race car driver or a baseball player, but to be good, you need to focus on one. You can't balance the time between the two. So obviously made the decision that not everyone gets the opportunity to be a race car driver or drive a race car. So after I aged out of little league, I was done with baseball. All my friends and guys I played with went on and played, on my high school team and so forth. But hung up the glove and took the route of being a race car driver.
Yeah, for sure. And then, you're from Arizona, but all time there's not been that many drivers from that state, that in NASCAR, but there's two other current Cup drivers, Alex Bowman and Michael McDowell, that are from Arizona. So I guess what does it mean to represent a state that doesn't produce as many NASCAR drivers as others?
It used to be a lot of fun because when you went through driver intros, you're the only guy, so you got the loudest cheers. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously Alex, he raced midgets like I did. He's from Tucson, Arizona. Then I was familiar with him as he made his way through the ranks, and then with Michael also being from Arizona is cool thing. And like you said, not a lot of race car drivers that have come out of Arizona that made it to the higher levels of racing. Obviously Billy Boat is a famous Arizona driver, or probably one of the more current famous drivers. He ran Indy cars, drove for AJ Foyt for a number of years. Then you go farther back for guys that were, victorious, well known, that came from Arizona that raced, mainly more Indy car opportunities than stock car.
Yeah, for sure. And then, uh, what would you say, over the years has been the person that's been your biggest inspiration?
Uh, I don't know about biggest inspiration. You know, my wife has always been there to help either support me or push me, give me the confidence to maybe do something I didn't want to try, or to go out there and be 100% at. My dad, through my years, we battled in that traditional father son type of relationship where I was always in trouble or always did something wrong, but see the value in how hard he pushed me at times, and uh, you know the work ethic that comes along with it. And you have to have those things or do those things in order to be better than the next person. So sometimes hard work and perseverance can outweigh someone's natural talent or natural ability if they're not given 100%. So so to make it in any sport, you have to be 100% dedicated to the cause. And that's the philosophy I've tried to follow.
Yeah, for sure. And then, as far as watching sports, do you enjoy watching any other sports than racing?
I watch a little bit of football. I'm not a huge football fan. I don't have a favorite team. Being from Arizona, we had the Cardinals that were not. the greatest team. So, you know, I can go watch other sports just because it's something to do, but I'm not vested really in any other sport.
For sure. And then I guess out when you're not racing on the racetrack, what do you enjoy doing in your free time?
Well, there's not much of it, it seems like, but I do go play golf. I play golf to remind myself when I'm a race car driver. I don't take it serious enough to be probably good at it, and I don't do it often enough to really be good at it. The rest of the time, it's just trying to spend time with my family, keep up with the day to day life that seems to stack up on you when you're on the road and away from it for basically half a week. So it some days I can just be going nonstop, and at the end of the day or the end of the week not realize what I've even been doing. So
Yeah, for sure. And then I guess we'll end with some fun questions now. I have so I guess the first one, I guess have you ever been overseas before?
I've been to New Zealand twice to race midgets over there. Enjoyed it. Would love to go back. Beautiful country. A lot of fun. Some great competitors over there. Um, yeah, I guess that's about the only place I've been other than the U.S., especially to go race. Other than on some vacation, some places.
Yeah, for sure. And then the next one is what would you say is on your bucket list?
Bucket list to visit.
I guess in general, just uh anything you want to do um in your life.
Uh, you know, I don't necessarily have something I guess on a bucket list. I because of the travel and the craziness of being a NASCAR driver. I mean, honestly, I enjoy spending time at home as much as possible, but with spend time with my wife and with Faith. If it's a situation where they want to go see something, I'm obviously on board for whatever that looks like. But typically, I enjoy just trying to relax and spend time at home because I just don't get to spend as much time doing that.
I guess the next one is do you have a favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chocolate chip has always been and most likely always will be.
Yeah, that's definitely probably the one of the most go-to ones. I definitely would agree with that. And then um do you have a or do you know how to play any instruments?
I I do not. I had gotten a guitar, tried to do lessons. Not I was not a fan. Was going to take a little bit more time than I had to dedicate it to the cause. So I did not ever learn how to play an instrument. All my spare time was always working on race cars, racing, and focused on that. So I've stayed clear of that portion of life.
And then staying with the music realm, do you have a favorite music genre? And then if so, what's your favorite artist and song of that genre?
I guess I'm more of a rock and roll guy and it bounces around. Probably more recent, for whatever reason, I couldn't even explain why. The Scorpions have kind of become one of my faves. Again, I've been all over the place, but I enjoy a lot of different types of music. We just went to Matchbox 20 just last week. Jack Johnson, have seen a bunch of different ones. Looking forward to Three Doors Down and Candlebox coming up here in September. So, yeah, man, I'll hit all different kind of genres. Uh, love seeing and meeting new people and just kind of enjoying life.
Yeah, that's very awesome. And I guess now, I guess closing out, I guess everyone at Pit Pass Network enjoys to donate to a charity after each interview. So I guess is there a charity you'd like to highlight for us?
Sure. For a number of years, there's a charity here in Charlotte that I've supported for a long time, Bullies to Rescue. It's an English Bulldog rescue. For a number of years, I had English Bulldogs. phenomenal dogs, and had two of them that lived 12 and 14 years. Now I have a French bulldog, so changed a little bit of direction with the bulldogs. But yeah, Bullies to Rescue is a great organization in Matthews, and have supported them for a long time.
Yeah, it's very awesome. And what was it called again? Bulls Rescue?
Bullies to the Rescue.
Bullies to the Rescue. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, JJ. It's been a great time chatting here and getting to know you more. And yeah, thanks for having us on the show. And yeah, wish you the best of luck the rest of the season and the years to come.
All right, I appreciate it very much.
Awesome.
All right, thank you.